Hi everyone, Kris from Stone Age Gamer here, and welcome back to Stone Age Gaming, a show where I get to talk about, well, this stuff. Video games, and the stuff that I've amassed over the years, and today we're going to talk about this, one of my all-time favorites, Blaster Master. When this game originally came out on the NES, it made quite an impact. Now, the name Blaster Master may not hold the same clout as other series like, say, Mega Man or Castlevania, but its incredible graphics, stellar music, and genre-bending gameplay made it an all-time classic that stands as one of the best games on the platform to this day. But after this game, things went pretty quiet for the Blaster Master franchise until Indie Creates released the excellent reboot Blaster Master Zero for current-gen platforms. But were things really as quiet as I just said they were? What a lot of people don't realize is Blaster Master actually saw a ton of sequels and even a whole other reboot before the Zero series took hold. I've been a massive fan of the franchise since I first played it back when it first came out, and as such have managed to amass a complete collection of every game in the franchise. Now, as always, I use the quotation marks around the word complete because, well, there are some notable things that you could argue I'm missing, like I didn't get the collector's editions of the Blaster Master Zero games because my money is not infinite, nor is my space. But I do have a collection containing every game in the franchise, physical whenever possible, and I'm pretty proud of it, and I love Blaster Master, so let's take a look. Alright, let's start at the start, which is right here, Blaster Master. Here is the game that started it all, the one that pretty much everybody knows about. It was easily the most successful game in the franchise up until relatively recently, and well, I mean, it still might be. It does have authentic arcade action, which is hilarious because this was not an arcade game. Now, technically there was an older game than this, that wouldn't be part of this, quote-unquote complete US collection, but I do wish I had it, which is the original Meta Fight. It's the, the game's more or less called Meta Fight. It's a Japanese original release that had a different story and whatnot, and I really would like to have one, but that game was way less successful than the American release of Blaster Master, so prices for it are pretty up there. I'd love to track one down one day with the box and everything, but for now, this is going to have to do. So here is Blaster Master. This is the original packaging for it. It's got a pretty unique look going on, that nice blue Sunsoft bar at the top you might recognize from other games like Fester's Quest or Batman. But I always love the look of this box. It is kind of weird when you really look at it, because like this is a screenshot that they cut out. You can see the pixels in here and in the background, because this is like a picture taken off of a CRT, which is kind of weird, but whatever, it works. It gives the box a pretty unique look, and here's your back of the box. Everything is slightly askew. Mega graphics, mega action, and I mean, look at these screenshots. Like, think about this. Is 1988? Like, look at these. These are really killer graphics. Like, these are really awesome looking things, and they look this cool in the game. It's really just the look and sound of this game was really something special back then. I mean, it still holds up today as far as you ask me, but man, this was just leagues above the other stuff that I had seen at the time. So let's take a look at what's inside the box. So this is here's the cart and the manual. Here's what the original cartridge looked like. Probably the coolest looking cartridges of all time were Nintendo cartridges. I love these guys. You can see my Blaster Master a little discolored on the top here, which is a shame, and it's got a little smudge on here. I have no idea what that is, but yep, there it is. There's the original Blaster Master. Here's a quick peek at its manual. Again, with the pixels going on here. It was not joking around about it being a video game. I also love this font. This is such a cool, like, Blaster Master. I've always loved the way that looks, but you've got this very, very 90s font going on there, which I very much enjoy. You get your breakdown of the game's story, which is about Jason and his pet frog Fred, who jumps onto a box of radioactive waste in his backyard, and then he follows the frog down into the pit and finds a tank, which he then jumps in and proceeds to blow up mutants in order to save his pet frog Fred, which is it's really something. So yeah, I love this. So this was really a pioneer of the Metroidvania type of game, search action as they call them. This was always pretty misleading to me though, because like it gave me a hint that you'd have to go back to stage 1 to find stage 4, but like pretty sure stage 5 was to the right of stage 4. Like, you go to stage 4, which goes down, and then you had to go right to get to stage 5. Whatever. It's all very interesting. I like that they gave you these, like, big, wide open, more or less hints of, like, where you should go to look for things, because this is a really big game. And then there was this. This always kind of confused me. So here's all the bosses that you can look at, except this guy here, which is the second to last boss of the game, is here, and the first boss of the game, the little brain thing, is not here, which I always thought was kind of weird. Like, was this supposed to be this way? Was this supposed to be hidden under the question mark? I mean, that's Plutonium boss, obviously, is the last boss, which you don't see, but I just always thought it was weird the first boss wasn't shown on this page, because that floaty brain thing is super cool looking. But, you know, there you go. Some special hint charts back here in the back, some views of your vehicle, the Sophia, and compliance. Watch for the best arcade titles from the best new name in home entertainment software, Sunsoft. Man, Sunsoft made some great stuff for the NES, and this is easily my favorite game that they made for the platform. Probably my favorite game that they ever made. I mean, I love this game. It's wonderful. So what happened next? This is the game that everybody knows. Everybody's seen Blaster Master. What came after Blaster Master? Well, more Blaster Master. In book form. That's right. The second release of Blaster Master was actually a novelization of Blaster Master. Yeah, I guess it's not really the second release, but it was the second thing. And you can see me moving this around in the light because this is embossed, which is super cool. I love that. This is, if you've never heard of these things before, these are the Worlds of Power novels. There's a whole set of these, and they're really bizarre novelizations of NES games. And I say really bizarre because, like, they don't really follow the stories of the games all that well. Like, the Metal Gear one stars some dude named Justin Hawley as Solid Snake. Simon's Quest, Castlevania 2, stars a character named Timothy Bradley, which is nuts. But this one was especially special because this did, you know, it followed the story of Jason going down the hole to find his pet frog, which makes this wonderful noise as they Rebeek! That goes throughout the entire book. But what's cool about this is that it introduced the character named Eve. Now, in the original Meta Fight, there was a main scientist guy, like the main guy who drove the tank, and then he had a female companion. And there was no female companion in the American version, so they created one in this book named Eve, and she actually wound up becoming canon to the Blaster Master series from this book, which was kind of a cool thing. What's neat about this, besides the fact that the story is what it is, you've got this trading card in here, in this middle of the thing. You got this thing on the back here that you look at in a mirror so you can read the hint. They also gave game hints upside down for some reason at the end of every chapter, which is once you get started, go straight to the ocean. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. They're talking about level 5? What? Oh, you want to go straight to the water. Okay, I got it. Right, and Area 1 has a bunch of water in it. So, there you go. This is the Blaster Master Worlds of Power novel. It is a fascinating read. I'm not sure I'd call it a good read, but it is fascinating, and it actually changed the course of the franchise going forward. Next up, there was an actual new game release. Sort of. This is Blaster Master Boy. This was the first official follow-up to Blaster Master in the United States, and it's a pretty uncommon game. Not a lot of people have even heard of this, let alone played it, because it has never ever been re-released on anything ever. What makes this super special weird is that this did not start life as a Blaster Master game. This is very similar to Super Mario Bros. 2 in that this was something else entirely in Japan, and when they localized it, they just slapped the Blaster Master license on it and called it a Blaster Master game. So, while on one hand it isn't a Blaster Master game, on the other hand, you can see by the title, it is totally a Blaster Master game. This is actually, canonically, a Blaster Master game. What it actually started life as is a game called Robo Warrior. It's a Bomber King. There you go. It's a spin-off of the Bomberman franchise. You can see a lot of that in the design, but as you can also tell, if you've played the original Blaster Master, in the top-down segments, Jason did kind of look like this. So basically, this just plays like an entire game that just removed all the tank stuff. So all the, rolling and jumping in the tank, side-scrolling stuff is all gone. It's just the top-down segments, because part of what made Blaster Master special was that half the game is a side-scroller, half of it's a top-down segment action stuff. So it really does kind of work. Now, this is where you get some of the quotation marks, because this is a little bit of a cheat. This box is a reproduction, because I don't know if you've seen... This game in its complete form is ridiculously rare, so why can't I open this? Finding the actual complete packaging for this is very expensive, which is just not something that I can afford. However, this cartridge is 100% legitimate. This is a real Blaster Master Boy cartridge. I got this at a convention in like a dollar bin. And clearly they had no idea what they had, because I had never even seen this game in person before. I think I read about it in a magazine once and said, oh, there's a Game Boy Blaster Master. I would love to track that down, but I had never seen it before. And then it was years and years and years and years later, I was at a gaming convention, and this was in the dollar bin with the it wasn't a dollar bin, it was like 3 for $5 or something. So I grabbed 2 other random Game Boy games and this one, and I was so happy about it. Now, I can't show you the back of this cartridge because it has somebody's name and phone number written on it, so we're not going to do that. But this is a legitimate Blaster Master Boy Game Boy cartridge, and it's a pretty neat game. It's pretty fun. Not having any idea when I did get this, I really didn't know much about the game other than it existed, and I just thought it was a new game that they made based on the overhead segments in Blaster Master. I had no idea that it was related to Bomberman, which is probably why it's never been re-released. But there you go, Blaster Master Boy. It's a thing, and it's real. But that's not all. There's more. Next up in the Blaster Master Pantheon, we have Blaster Master 2. Yes, it did get a direct numbered sequel, and I remember seeing this for the first time in a Toys R Us and being incredibly angry because I was such a Nintendo dude. I didn't have a Sega Genesis. I was a Nintendo guy, and one of my favorite Nintendo games finally got a sequel, and it was only for Sega Genesis. And much like Blaster Master Boy, this has never been re-released, so it is still exclusively a Sega Genesis game. It never showed up on a virtual console, nothing. And you can see this is a pretty wacky looking box. Like, it is very green. It stuck out. It stuck out on store shelves, I'll give it that. The game itself is, I mean, if you went into a store and you saw this box, well, what's the game like? I don't know, there's no screenshot on it. There's absolutely no screens from the game on the back of this box, which is super weird because this is a pretty good looking game. It's got some major problems, don't get me wrong. This isn't a phenomenal video game by any stretch, but there's some really good visuals in this game, so it's kind of weird that they decided not to put any on the box to help sell it. So here's the cartridge itself. There you go. It's, just the box art on a cart with Sega Genesis stuff on it. There it is, Blaster Master 2. And here's our manual here and our join the club. Let's see, we got some... Just fill out this card and drop it in the mail, and you'll receive a free subscription to the Sunsoft Game Time News. I would love to see the Sunsoft Game Time News. I don't think I've ever actually seen that in person. I'd love to see what that looks like. But here's a quick peek at the manual. Sunsoft went red on the top instead of blue this time around. That's weird. But kind of tells the story. It takes place after the original Blaster Master. Jason's got Sophia in a shed, and then like a bunch of lightning strikes, and these lightning monsters have come they steal Sophia's parts, and so he rebuilds Sophia and goes after the lightning monsters. Unfortunately, there's no real frog connection in this one. And you can see in these screenshots, you've got 3 different kinds of play in this one, where the original was just the side view and the top view. This one, you got 2 different side views. You've got your tank side view stuff. You got your big side view stuff where Jason walks around. These are kind of just for boss battles. And then you've got the overhead segments in the tank, and these control completely insane. These are so difficult to navigate because the controls are nuts. But then you just got some breakdown. So what do your items look like? No really crazy interesting artwork or anything like that in here, except of course this. I mean, look at that. That's some action-packed stuff right there, huh? Nice. That's Blaster Master 2. There was a pretty big gap following Blaster Master 2. That was released in, let's see, take a look on this. This says, it must be 1992. There you go. 1992 was when this came out. It was all the way till 2000 Well, we got this guy. This is the first revitalization of the Blaster Master brand after a long time. Blaster Master Enemy Below for Game Boy Color. This was released in the year 2000 for the Game Boy Color. It works in black and white and color. It's not one of those color exclusive ones. This is an interesting little game right here. It's kind of like a retelling of the original Blaster Master from a gameplay perspective. Like you can see by this screenshot here, it takes assets directly from the NES game and just kind of plops them on Game Boy Color, except all the maps are different. So it's the same visuals, it's even the same music, except not very well done, unfortunately. The Game Boy Color was capable of some really good sounding music, but the original NES compositions from Naoki Kodaka had such a unique sound, and this did not have that at all. They're really, really pared down versions of those original songs. Not terrible, but not great. They did change assets for the overhead segments. Here's a quick look at the cartridge. It's really nothing all that special, just the box art on a plain black cartridge. And here's our manual right here. So yeah, they changed the way Jason looks in the overhead segments. They also changed the way that he moves. And you get a look at him here. He's a little less, giant, goofy anime big head. He doesn't really move diagonal as well. Just felt a lot more stilted. And in fact, the whole game's physics were just a little bit off. So it looks the part. It just doesn't really sound or play the part. But it does try. This takes place in the distant future, I think. Let's see. Jason is... he starts his life anew in a distant land. Then a stranger arrives at his door who knows his hero's past and has a plea to make. I want you to capture, destroy the creatures of darkness we have succeeded in producing. Yeah, so it's got some big ridiculous story, but it does actually tie in. It is a straight up sequel to Blaster Master, even if the gameplay itself feels like a retread of the first game. It canonically, storyline-wise, works as a direct sequel to the original, the all three previous Blaster Master games. Isn't that something? Yeah, you can see more screenshots here of all the reused assets from the NES game. It's not bad. It just missed the mark. Just like the other, the previous two games. Like Blaster Master Boy, not a bad game, but it's not amazing. Blaster Master 2, again, I wouldn't call it bad, but it really doesn't live up to the first game. And here we are, same situation. It's fine, but it's not great. But it is a Blaster Master game, and there it is, Blaster Master Enemy Below for Game Boy Color. This is where things get even more interesting. The following year, we had this. This is the PlayStation 1 exclusive Blaster Master Blasting Again. Now, I forgot to mention, this one here was re-released on the 3DS Virtual Console. Yeah, so you can actually play this you can buy this on a 3DS. This, however, has, like Blaster Master 2 and Blaster Master Boy, never been re-released ever. There's no modern way to play this, short of slapping this disc into a PlayStation 3 that's backwards compatible, I guess. Or, many other, methods that we have at StoneAgeGamer.com, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. But here is Blasting Again. This was an attempt to make Blaster Master 3D, and it's really not terrible. It's got kind of a cool modernization look to it, too. Like, you've still got that anime aspect to it. It's just not quite as colorful and goofy as the old one, but you've got, these shots here that are like, got a pretty decent art design going on here. This was a budget game when it came out in America. I think I only ever saw it land straight into like the $20 budget bins. I think I was working at a Toys R Us when this launched. I said, "Oh my goodness, they made a new Blaster Master and it doesn't look bad." So of course I bought it and played a little bit of it, and it's a really interesting take on trying to make this the Blaster Master formula work in 3D. And as far as PS1 games go, this really isn't bad looking. It's not an ugly game by any stretch. And here's a look at the disc and an ad for Eternal Eyes underneath it. Thanks, Crave. But, there's the disc art itself, which isn't bad. It's a PlayStation black disc, nothing special. Let's take a quick look at the instruction manual. This is also, it fits in with the canon. There is a functional story that works between all these Blaster Master games. It doesn't really contradict itself too much. And this one takes place in the far future. This is after Jason is dead, and his kids, what is it, Elfie and something? Forget their names. Where the heck's the story in this thing? Roddy and Elfie, that's right. They're Jason's kids, Jason and Eve's kids, I think. And they take up the mantle to, save the day. Again, no frog. very disappointed. Lack of frog in here, but all in all, not a bad game. It is definitely a curiosity. It's got some issues. It's not a masterpiece, but it's a pretty solid experience, all things considered. And I would love to see this re-released on a modern console to play with like an analog stick or something, and maybe clean up the graphics a little bit so it's not quite so chunky PS1. But you know, good times. There's Blaster Master. There's Eve and Jason. There they are, all grown up and before they died. Face it, you're stumped, so make the call. Hints, tips, and tricks, all a phone call away. US 900-903-HINT. Wow, 95 cents per minute. Wow, I would be curious to call that number and see what's going on these days. It's probably been disconnected. But hey, there you go. Blaster Master blasting again. And then things went silent. For a good long while, yet again, things went quiet. Until they resurfaced in a very unlikely place. The Wii. This is Blaster Master Overdrive, which is a WiiWare game. This came out of nowhere. I think they announced it with a trailer maybe a couple of days before it actually dropped on the Wii Shop channel. And it showed up with absolutely no fanfare as a brand new reboot of the Blaster Master franchise. This does not connect to the previous stories in any way. This is just a straight up reboot of the Blaster Master series. It has a whole new story with a whole new character. It's got nothing to do with a frog. It does have to do with being in a tank and rolling around. Continue. Where did I leave off on this game? I can't even imagine. Oh, I left off nowhere. I have no game saves. Right, because I had to return my Wii U a long time ago to Nintendo for a repair, and when I came back, I lost all of my data, which was a huge, huge bummer. But I was glad I was able to re-buy this because this is no longer available anywhere. This game was never released physically in any way, shape, or form. The only way to get Blaster Master Overdrive was to download it off of the Wii Shop channel, which is now completely defunct. So there's no legal way to get this game, but here we go. Here's firing up the tank and zoom. And it's a pretty cool game. It's got a lot of problems. Just like the other ones we were talking about, it's almost really good. Like, you can see this opening area here. It looks nice. The tank has a real good weight to it. Like, it feels pretty decent to roll around. And that was another thing about the PlayStation one I forgot to mention, is that the tank itself has really interesting controls. Because, you know, this is all about a jumping tank. So when you move something like that in a 3D, you kind of want to add a little bit more realism to it. And they did a good job of making the tank feel like a tank. And this feels a little bit more tank-like. It's a little less rolly than the original one was in the original game. But here's one of my biggest problems with this game. Like, see, this is a pretty good looking setup right here. But then you go into the cave, and this is pretty much the rest of the game. All the areas in this game are more or less, there's some details here and there, but they're mostly just, here's a different colored cave. Good luck, have fun. And the other big problem with this game I had was the controls. Like a lot of Wii games, this game was saddled with having to play it like this. You have to play with the Wii remote held sideways, which is, you know, not bad at first. It's, you know, this is fine, whatever, for what I'm doing. But you get some really cool items later on in this game, including this like awesome grappling hook thing, and you wind up having to use all these different buttons that aren't really designed to be used when you're holding the Wii remote sideways. Like, you have to use the B trigger, you have to use the A button. I think the A button is what uses the grappling hook, and I was like, you got to be kidding me with this. This is not a natural way to play this game. Why the heck can't I use the Pro Controller? They never added that functionality. It obviously didn't get any patches because that wasn't really a thing for WiiWare games. So yeah, there you go. It's fine. The music is kind of it's all reprises of the original NES games music, and they're okay. They make some very interesting choices with the music. Some of it's not bad. Some of it is bad, and then more often than not, it's just interesting. But it's certainly a game. You can get in and out of your tank as usual. You move super slow in this one, and then it's got the overhead segments and stuff in there too. So you'll be in your tank, you jump out, you get to the overhead segments, and it works just like the original Blaster Master with all new levels and kind of ugly graphics and weird music, and that is the oddity that is Blaster Master Overdrive. This reboot clearly did not go anywhere, and like I said, only available on WiiWare. Can't buy it brand new these days, which is a shame. And last but not least, we have these. This is the Blaster Master Zero Trilogy. These were originally released digitally, but thanks to limited run games, they exist physically. And this third one just came out. I just got mine in the mail the other day, and they all share a pretty similar aesthetic. This was a very successful reboot of this franchise. These games, for Blaster Master Zero, was like a really, really cool, not remake, but it just kind of took everything that made the original Blaster Master so good and added a whole bunch of new elements to it, made it feel more modern, but with this, traditional 8-bit kind of, like a super 8-bit look. So it looks like an NES game, but it does all sorts of visual effects that the NES could never, ever pull off. I think it was originally on 3DS, but then they ported it to the Switch pretty shortly thereafter, which is where I played it because, I was going to buy the 3DS one, and then they said, no, it's coming to Switch. I said, okay, cool, then that's where I will play it, because I would much rather play this on a TV, and I'm glad I did, because this game is awesome. It is so good. They eventually added all this DLC where you could play as, Shovel Knight and Shantae, and they actually play, it's not just a skin, they actually play like those characters, so it changes the way you play the game, because you're playing as these characters with these different attributes, which is wild. And the mythology ties back to the original. It's a whole new story. It does involve, Jason and Fred and Eve, which is super cool. And eventually by Blaster Master 3, they start pulling in the characters from Metafight, which is such a cool callback to, for a long time, fans of the series. But yeah, it's really good stuff. And Limited Run did a really nice packaging here. You got a little instruction manual. You got the little tiny cartridge down there. Some nice artwork in there. They came with these little trading cards, which are, shiny and whatnot. Got some Limited Run on the back. Breakdown of the characters and such. Pretty snazzy looking. There's Fred. Isn't he wonderful? For some reason, he turns gray in the next game. I don't know what that's about, but he's adorable and he's wonderful. And he sticks around for all the games. So hooray for Fred. Then we did 002, which was the first time Blaster Master got a straight sequel that was actually an improvement. They actually really evolved the gameplay in this one. Whereas Blaster Master 2 on Genesis took things in a bunch of weird directions. This was it introduced more traveling options. You go to all these different planets and stuff instead of just navigating one area. It structurally felt a little weird as opposed to the first game, which they kind of course corrected for Blaster Master 03 on that. But I loved this game's ambition. It's really fun to play. Killer music. Again, you got a cool little trading card. Expanded the mythology a lot, where you introduce you to a bunch of different characters, because as you go to these different planets, you find more metal attackers. Your Sophia vehicle, all these other people pilot all these different tanks like yours on these other planets all over the place, which was really cool to run into. This is a really fun game, and it's got some really great boss designs and some really awesome artwork as usual. And then you had the same thing as with 03. Amazing artwork, cool manual, little card. This game was such a treasure. This game really tied everything together in a brilliant way, wrapped up the story that they started in this one, tied back to elements from the original series, tied back to musical elements from the original series. It's so good. It's such a love letter to what came before it. And just on its own, it's a really, really legitimately good search action game. If you like Metroidvania type stuff, even if you don't pay attention to the story, which is effectively nonsense. It's real anime nonsense, to the nth degree, but it is entertaining. And the gameplay itself is silky smooth. It's so well done. These games are all great. Now, this is where the other quotation marks come in with the complete collection, because I went with the standard editions on all three of these, because I just really like it when my stuff matches, and the special editions that Limited Run made were pretty expensive. They were gorgeous, but they wouldn't really match all the rest of the games on my shelf. So I decided to keep it simple and just get my basic ones so that I could have my physical editions of all the games in their original formats, and there you go. But yes, there are physical editions on other platforms. I think PS4 got these games as well. The games themselves are 100% identical, so I didn't go crazy with, I better get those too, because at a certain point you gotta call the budget what it is. And I have all the games, and that's really all I need to have on those. But yes, there's your caveat, and that is the end. That's the last of the Blaster Master games that we know of. Maybe they're going to make more. The ending of this game did leave it open for a new kind of story to take over, which is really cool. This actually called back to Roddy and Alfie from the PlayStation 1 game, which was such a cool callback. There's so much good stuff in here. Yes, I love Blaster Master. There's the complete collection, and there it is. So as you just saw, the Blaster Master franchise has indeed seen a ton of weird twists and turns, and like we said, several games in the series have never been re-released in any form, which to me is crazy. Here's hoping that the success of the recent Blaster Master Zero series convinces somebody at Sunsoft to put together some sort of collection, making all these classics playable again. But in the meantime, we here at Stone Age Gamer have plenty of great modern ways to make these games playable on original hardware right now. There'll be some links to that great stuff in the description of this video on YouTube, which is where the video is posted, so I'm not sure why I specified YouTube, but on that note, thanks everyone for watching. If you liked what you saw here today, please be sure to comment, like, subscribe, do all that wonderful stuff that makes us all happy. Share this video around to your other Blaster Master friends. Sound off in the comments and let us know what you think of the Blaster Master series. What's your favorite game? Are you one of the 8 people that actually played Blaster Master Overdrive? Let us know, because we always want to hear from you. Thanks again on behalf of all of us here at Stone Age Gamer. Keep playing games.